It's not a bluff.
Before we go to calls, I do want to get your comments on comments you've made earlier. This was quoted in The Hill. It was about Robert Mueller. You made the case that he should be fired. Why is that?
Well, and I was saying he should be, but I would encourage the president and Jeff not to fire him. But the president has told me, he's told others, I'm not going to fire him. So it's much ado about nothing, if Shakespeare wouldn't mind me using it. But he's not going to fire him. And so, yeah, I think he deserves to be fired. But the reason he can't be fired is because we have some knuckleheaded Republicans that say, oh, gee, if the president fired him, then we would need to impeach the president. That's insane.
You saw support for him coming from Paul Ryan. You saw support coming from Speaker
Yes, and let me tell you about that.
Majority Leader.
And I brought up a long laundry list of reasons that he is not to be trusted to come out with a fair and impartial prosecution. And so we are now to a point, and Democrats just want Trump gone. I get that. But any Republican that says Mueller will come out with a fair, impartial investigation and prosecution is either A, just wants Trump gone like the Democrats do, B, intentionally staying ignorant of Mueller's past, or 3, they're thinking someday I'm going to go before a Senate confirmation hearing and I want the Democrats to be gentle with me, so I'm going to say Mueller will be fair. That's the only 3 type of Republicans you have that are saying Mueller is doing a good job and he'll come out fair. You ask Dr. Hatfield, whose life was ruined when he was not the anthrax killer. Ask Martha Stewart, ask Scooter Libby. There are so many lives he has ruined. Now the 4 guys from Boston that the FBI got put in prison when they were totally framed by the FBI in Boston, and they were under the direction of Mueller. He was assistant U.S. attorney, but in charge of criminal cases. But he kept writing to the parole board, don't let these guys out. They were totally framed by his people. And, Mueller leaves Boston and the city has to pay out, $100 million or so. But 2 of the guys died in prison. So he doesn't have a very good track record. I feel very strongly.
We'll have follow-ups on that. Let's go to calls from Newcastle, Delaware, Republican line. Jim, you're up with Louie Gohmert, Republican of Texas. Go ahead.
Hey, Louie, you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
We got to get rid of this Ryan, and we got to get rid of this McConnell character. They're just poison. I don't understand it. McConnell was saying, we have to return to regular order, but it's the same game that he's been pushing for years. What's up with this? Why does the Senate why do the Republicans allow him to be their leader? And Ryan, we might as well have Pelosi in. He's screwing the president. And,
exactly.
It's terrible.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Let me mention about McConnell. He makes clear that he does not want to get rid of the 60-vote cloture rule because, we'll end up back in the minority at some point, and we want to be able to have that kind of influence. But if you go back before the election in November 2016, Schumer was giving indications, maybe it's time we went back to a majority. He was thinking they were going to get the majority back, and he was going to thumb his nose at McConnell and say, hey, buddy, this is what I think. I got the impression. And the truth is, even if they want to keep the 60-vote cloture rule, they should not have it on spending bills, and they should not have it on confirmation. I was watching a black and white movie from the early 60s, and it was all about whether or not they could get that 51st vote for confirmation. So the Constitution doesn't require 60 votes, totally imposed by the Senate itself. It takes 51 votes to get rid of that 60-vote requirement. They need to do that at least on spending bills and on confirmation, because like the previous omnibus spending bill we did, the temporary bill, another $1 trillion in debt. But they were going to have to get 60 votes, and they spent several $100 billion that our kids and grandkids will pay, because we're not going to be around to pay that. And it was just to get enough Democratic senators bought off to get the cloture vote. So we got to get rid of that. It is costing future generations money, and it really is immoral.
Let's hear from Wayne, Littletown, Pennsylvania. Democrats line.
Wayne, I'd have you.
Pedro, I've got 3 points for Louie. And all I hear from Republicans, Medicare. Let's cut Medicare, number one. Number two, I want to fire Mueller. So I ought to fire you. No, I don't agree with this stuff. Yeah, we got a heck of a deficit, but we're going to put all this money into the military. We're going to build more missiles. I mean, come on, man.
Oh.
People here in this country need help too. We don't have the pension like you people do.
There's so much ignorance.
Yeah, you can laugh. You can laugh, but I'm not the only opinion out there.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll respond.
Yeah, and I know, and I get an email from my dad time to time saying, "Are you sure? Because it sounds like you guys have this golden pension." In the 80s, finally Congress did the right thing. Congress has the same retirement that every federal worker in America has. And there is no golden medical insurance. It's what every federal worker in America has. And actually, I haven't had health insurance. I got it last year through my wife's employer, but Obamacare, we were not supposed to get a subsidy. That was in the law. And if you got it, you had to have the subsidy in spite of the law, so I didn't take it. So I know people like to talk about you get this huge pension, retirement stuff. There's a lot of misinformation about that. And I appreciate you saying all you hear from Republicans is let's cut Medicare. And I deeply regret you weren't listening carefully. I didn't say I was in favor of cutting Medicare. I wasn't. I didn't say that. We do need to do something different that will cost less, and we could, and give our seniors even more coverage. The pharmaceuticals are making a killing off of Obamacare, and I saw it. I knew they got bought off to support Obamacare. So did the biggest insurance companies, and so did a number. If you saw somebody sign on to the ACA, they got something out of it, and it all hurt the people. So I'm not advocating cutting Medicare. I do want to do something that will give our seniors more coverage, more health care, because they're finding out that $716 billion that you Democrats pushed through without a single Republican vote, it did more damage to our seniors than anything Republicans done in the whole last 100 years. It was devastating to seniors. And so some of us are trying to get that coverage back that the Obamacare took away. So we may be more aligned than you ever want to think about, because I wasn't for the $716 billion that the Democrats cut Medicare. Glad to hear you disagree with your own party.
Were you okay with the omnibus bill not including provisions to stabilize ACA insurance marketplaces?
And that's tricky, because the ACA provides bailouts for insurance companies that had record banner years. I mean, I think that's insane. The insurance companies, the biggies, they've driven the small ones out of the market, and the last thing they need is big stabilization bailouts. We've got to have material corrections, and we should have done it in the spending bill. I don't think we addressed that adequately in this bill either. But I'm not for any more bailouts to the insurance companies that the ACA provided.
This is Keith in Savannah, Tennessee, Republican line.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, good morning, Louie. I got a couple questions for you. Why are they going to put a tunnel through in New York and not build a wall? And why why are they still going to fund Planned Parenthood?
Keith, you ask great questions, and unfortunately, the answer to both of your questions will not make you happy, I feel sure, because it makes me very unhappy. The reason there's money for the Gateway Tunnel under some other name is because they needed to buy off enough Democratic senators, and particularly the Democratic leader in the Senate, to get them on board to get cloture. And so we're spending billions of dollars for that just to get enough Democratic votes to get to cloture. That's why that tunnel money is there. And what was your other question?
It was Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood. Yeah, the reason that's there is because Democrats are a lot better at negotiating than we are. I don't know what the deal is. And Paul Ryan is an honest, honorable guy. He is. But he's terrible at negotiating. And I know he pushes some of these ideas, but the other guys, because he's so nice, the people that push harder from the Democrats in the Senate, they always get a better deal and get more of what they want than we do. So we have some great negotiators that were terrific businessmen and businesswomen before they got to Congress. And somehow when they get to Congress, if they're a Republican, they have this idea of negotiation. Okay, here's where we're willing to end up, and they start there. And so at least one of the things about President Trump, he knows how to do a deal. Unfortunately, in this omnibus, he let 2 people in the House and 2 people in the Senate do the real negotiation, and then they come to him and they've got this piece of junk. And that's being nice.
Is this part? Oh, sorry.
No, but that's why it's not a better deal. They've got better negotiators than we do.
Is this part concerns about the November elections? We were talking previously about this. You talked about the Speaker, if it's Pelosi again. Are you concerned that the House may lose out?
I am very concerned, and I don't think that it's going to be because Democrats come out in record numbers more than they ever have. They may, but I think it's more about whether or not Republicans stay home. And let's face it, we have not given people a lot to come out and feel good about voting for, because we are not delivering. We have the House, we have the Senate, we have the White House, and I know people say, yeah, but we don't have the 60 in the Senate. We got enough to vote out the 60 votes so they can get done what we need to. And again, Pedro, I come back to this. It is immoral to be spending like we are when we're not, our generation's not going to pay for it. But I did hear a comedian that apparently in her 20s, and she said, have you guys heard that our generation is going to be the first generation that doesn't have it as good, doesn't live as good as our parents? She said, isn't that crazy? How could we not live as good as our parents when we're all still living with our parents? And so, I mean, she was pretty funny, but that just shouldn't be. We need to leave it better for our kids.
Louie Gohmert.